praise and we give you honor. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen and amen and amen. I want to ask those that can say amen to say amen. If you can, those who are able, please say amen. If you can hear me, amen. Amen and amen. Thank you so much once again for joining this morning. Once again, my name is Claire Agaba, and I am honored to be your host or your moderator this morning. I am a counselor by profession, but today I am not the counselor. Today I am on this side of coordinating a very wonderful conversation. And like I said in the beginning, I pray that you will learn, we will learn a thing or two. The people that are going to be with us this morning, talking to us, sharing with us, say they are not the experts in this field. So I pray that we are able to learn from them. They have experience, they have some expertise in this field, and I pray that we will learn a thing or two from them. I want to introduce our panelists or our facilitators this morning. I want to begin by introducing Mr. Sam Kimera. Mr. Sam Kimera is a worship leader. He's an artist, like a music artist, gospel music artist. He's a father of 3. So he has some experience in the area of parenting. We also have Mrs Ritah Kasi Zarwango. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs Ritah Kasi is a parent. She's an accountant by profession, a former banker. She's a businesswoman. If you want to build, she's the woman to go to. But she's a parent of 6 wonderful children. She has her oldest, who is 25, and her youngest, who is 7. And then we are also joined by Dr. Eddy Walakira. Dr. Eddy Walakira is a researcher. He's a board, he sits on a number of boards. He's a lecturer, he's a parent, he's an expert in the area of parenting, dealing with children. He will tell us more about himself, just in case I have left out something. He's a lecturer at Makere, but also with some local and other international universities. He's a father of girls. And if you're a parent of only girls like me, you are very excited that it is okay for now to be a mother or father of just girls. So his oldest is 18 and his youngest is 15. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the people we are going to be interacting with this morning. Without using any more of your time, I want to allow our first speaker, our first panelist, to speak to us, and that is Mr. Kimera. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of discipline is quite controversial, especially for us who call ourselves the dot-com parents. I don't know what questions you have about this thing called discipline. So I will not even try, one, to define, one, to explain anything about it, because I know we all have experience, either as children, or as parents, or as teachers, or as bigger sisters, or as guardians on this matter. So I'm not even going to dare say anything. This morning on the area of parenting, I will let the panelists this morning do all that talking. My job is to speak for you, our dear audience. That's my job this morning. So feel free, if you have a question on anything that we will say, even already you could already have a question and you're like, this is what I want to learn today. Please feel free to go to our chat section and just write your question there. And whenever possible, we will ensure that we answer. I am a counselor, but today I am the mediator to ensure that what you want to learn is exactly what we are going to give you this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce and welcome Mr. Sam Kimera, our first speaker this morning, to share with us what is this thing, what's the big deal about this thing, discipline, and he's going to share as the Spirit leads him. You're welcome, Sam. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Claire, let me just confirm something. Does everyone have access to chat?
Yes, Sam. Everybody does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, am I able, if I could be allowed permission to share my screen? I decided I wasn't initially going to use the screen, but I decided to use a few visuals for the sake of those who may be preferring that to follow. But yes,
Please.
so as that happens, I think as I wait for that, I want to say thank you so much for having me here. For those who are hearing, let me see. Yes, I can see the good mornings coming through. All right. So there's something I wanted to first of all start with. I want to start with some salutations. I want to thank Green Hill Academy for putting this together with the team behind the scenes, behind the webinar, doing all the logistics and the preparations. I want to thank the parents in general, parents who are in the room, and also my fellow panelists. I should say when I was invited to speak, I was taken aback a bit, immediately wondering, okay, wow, what an honor. Of course, we met in a preparation session earlier, I think a few weeks back actually, and then I learned that Doctor has more than 20 years experience in this field and is a real authority on the subject. And I said, wow. Then yesterday we had our final prep session and I got to meet Mrs Ritah Kasi, and then discovered she has 6 children, and the first, like Claire said, is 25 years. And I said, wow. And the last one is 7 years. And then I was like, I need to find out who are the people who are coming to attend this session. And when I was briefed a bit about the caliber of the parents in this session, I said another wow. I said, hey, okay, this is amazing. Who am I? All to say, I take this as a very humbling opportunity to be here, to be speaking to you, and to be on the panel with such, of course, a wonderful, highly experienced for people, and to be speaking to you on your Saturday morning. Thank you so much for having me. Now, thankfully, the Bible offers some guidance on these sort of situations, like the guy who said, silver or gold I don't have, but what I have, I give to you. And in this time together, that's what I will share with you. My little experience, but also, and I trust that it will be useful. Also, the Baganda say, so, you know, we're going to learn from each other, from my little experience, as I also benefit from the wealth that is in the room. So my job is very easy, and I will take just a few moments to structure, to maybe give you a bit of further guidance on how we have decided to structure this conversation. So we have 3 panelists, myself included. I will start with the first set of objectives that we are focusing on, just to introduce the subject. Briefly, of course, it's a wide subject, so none of us can do full justice to it in a short time like this. But I will just go ahead and touch on a few things, a bit of a foundation. Then I'll hand over to Dr. Eddy or Walakira, who will take on the second section, and Mrs Ritah Kasi will move on from there. All right? Okay, so again, thank you so much for having me here. I'll take just a few minutes and introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Sam Kimera. I am, among other things, yes, father to 3 children. Our first is 7 let me show you a picture. Actually, I got a picture for you so you can see my little happy family. So the first one there is 6 years. The second one is 5 years. And the other one, at the time we took this picture, had not yet come. So we have a 7 months one. And it's amazing to have 3 children, and also to hear that others have 6 and so many more. So we definitely thank God for the gift of children. And of course, I bring greetings from my wife. Her name is Esther Kimera. So greetings. All right. So just a few things. Let me start maybe by telling you a bit about my story with parenting. And I can share my screen. I trust that everyone can also use the chat box when they need to. I will also let you know, among the other things I do is I'm a trainer and facilitator, besides also being a coach and things like that. I'm a trainer and facilitator, so I like to have an engaging session. Let me start with my initial interaction with parenting. So soon as we finished campus, I got a chance to join the Watoto Children's Choir. Now, I'm a part of Watoto Church. I've been a part of Watoto Church for the last maybe 20 years or so. And I got to travel with the children's choir. Now, if you're not familiar with the children's choir or Watoto is a local church here in Kampala, and they have a ministry side of it where we take care of vulnerable children who have lost one or both of their parents. And the way we raise funding and sponsorship and so on and so forth is an awareness about the situation is through choirs that travel. I got to travel on several of these choirs. And during that time, that's when I first got into this idea of parenting. Because I was a young man, 15 years ago, young man, never really needed to take care of anyone. But now we are doing training for 6 months. We are going to be away for 6 months in a different culture, in a different space. And of course, people like me need training. So they use the particular materials that would help us to understand how children are raised, especially when it comes to the biblical way of raising children. So I just wanted to show you some pictures of what that looked like long ago. That was Watoto Children's Choir. That's I think me on the far right. If you can see, it's a blurred picture, so bear with me. And then that's another one where we're at some airport, just singing for those people and sharing with them the story of what Watoto is doing. So that's when I got into this idea of taking care of children. Every choir had about 18 to 20 children. And when you got those children, we had about 10 adults, 9 or 10 adults who would travel with them. Now we spend essentially a whole year with them. You have them to understand, we have 6-year-olds, 7 until like 12. If you've never raised your own children, never given birth to your own children, you need to be taught how to. And that's where we started. And we'd actually have classes, paper classes and full discussions and training so that by the time we go, we can be trusted to take care of these children because they would have to be studying, we'll be responsible for their discipline, we'll be responsible for all the fun activities they will be having, the performance, because it's music and stage, as you can see. And it was quite a bit of work, but it was beautiful work. I got to travel 5 times. So that was the last time, I think it was 2013 or 2014, and enjoyed that. But in the context of our discipline here, I got to learn quite a bit. And the material that we used, that was used to help us to learn about how to raise children God's way, was called Growing Kids God's Way. Actually, for those who might be interested, especially if you are in Watoto or otherwise are interested, this is a program. We use these materials to actually do classes on parenting as church. So you can actually ask about that. You can call Watoto office and also inquire about that if you're interested. So Growing Kids God's Way, and it was all about reaching the heart of your child with a God-centered purpose. Now, when it comes to, I'll just leave this up here in case someone wants to take a screenshot and that sort of thing. Now, when it comes to, as far as my experience anyway, and I was reflecting about this as we were preparing, the question that we as parents always have, whether you have a 25-year-old or 10-year-old or 15 or 20 or 7-month child like myself, the question we are constantly, I think, worrying about as parents is, how do I raise today's child for tomorrow's future? There is a tension there. How do I raise today's child for tomorrow's future? And we all have our biases. We were raised a certain way for us. In fact, if you don't mind, I want to invite you to type something in the chat. You know, something that was in your childhood that you're like, I wish children were like this. You know, the way we were. You know, for us when we were growing up, when your mother looked at you a certain way, you didn't need to see the Umoja slipper. You would just get in line. You know, the TV would be, the sitting room would be organized, da, da, da. Recently, I had a friend of mine was saying, for them, they look at their child and their child is wondering, what's wrong with your eye? Why are you doing like this? Yet for us, it was a clear signal that by the way, don't play around because fire may come. So if you don't mind, I would like to invite you, just take a few seconds, type in the chat, what do you miss about growing up in terms of how children used to be raised? Please put in the chat. And I know we got lots of questions from you. Yes, Isabella says respect was paramount. How could you dare talk back to an adult? You know, I may occasionally throw in some Ganda and I will translate. I hope you do not mind. I'm feeling very comfortable because I'm used to meeting lots of you in the parking lot and saying hello and so on. Isabella says, respect was paramount. What else do you miss about those days? Okay. Remember, our attention is how do we raise a child today for tomorrow's future? Okay. Anyone else? I'll just give it a second or two. Yes, Janet says when parents call, you respond chap chap. If they say things twice or Wednesday. Let me see. Maureen says, Namayanja, thank you. Not sitting in the same room with the visitors. Yes, how you come? Quickly, you greet. You greet and you disappear. No one should even hear you in the bedroom. Even if, let me see, should mother find you there Wednesday? But at the same time, if they say, which for those who did not have that experience, if the parent says, who is there, you should be able to respond quickly. So you shouldn't be near, but you should be as if it should be like a good waiter. The eye said it all. Yes, and you mothers, especially you mothers, there's a special eye you guys have that I hope it's working for you in your family. You just look and things just get organized. Even the clothes get ironed. Let me see. Brenda says we obeyed our parents, not too many questions asked. Today, children want to know everything. Why? It's like a song. Playing with so much insecurity. Gladys, thank you. I won't read all of the responses so that we keep time. But those are things I wanted to highlight. Okay. And it's interesting. So we have to come back to this question. What do we do? House chores, Isabella, again, house chores was a must. Everyone had a timetable for housework. Holiday time, the house help would be given leave. Yes, you come back Friday from school. For us, we'd come back Friday. Saturday, Sunday, they may give you a break. Monday, everyone knows who's washing dishes, who goes to the well, who cleans the compound, all those things. And it's quite interesting. Think about. Now, today, again, the big question we have, how do we raise today's child for tomorrow's future? The reality is also we don't know what the future holds, okay? So I took some liberty and I just decided to look up some definitions of discipline, okay? When I looked at discipline, and I won't give you all the context on the screen, I'll just use the screen very minimally. In fact, maybe let me stop sharing my screen here. So what I discovered, I looked at a dictionary and I found the dictionary definition of discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. So there's always that element of punishment, disobedience, punishment, disobedience. We need to deal with that. And that seems to be always the tension. Then I looked at Merriam-Webster. It's famous. There's Oxford, Merriam-Webster, a few which are really big. So I just picked Merriam-Webster as a dictionary. What's the definition of discipline? Okay. And they gave a few. I'll just read out and then we'll move. Merriam-Webster said the definition is to control. It is the control gained by enforcing obedience or order. The other one is to bring under control, to impose orders upon, to train or develop by instruction and exercise, especially in self-control, then to punish or penalize for the sake of enforcing obedience. So there's this, generally speaking, there's this idea that it is, control, be in line, things like that, which is fine. And I think we all understand. But what I want to bring to your attention is, regardless of how you describe discipline, how you see it will determine what you do with your children. Again, I'll say it. How you see discipline, how you describe discipline, how you define it will determine what you do with your children. Again, regardless of age, your perspective will determine what you do, your practice, okay? So we can all generally understand that about parenting and discipline. Historically, there are two general approaches that we see. Again, what I'm doing is just introducing the subject, and then I'll hand over to Dr. Eddy, and then we'll move. And then later on, we'll be having a panel discussion where we get to do some Q&A for practicals, okay? And I'm just wanting to introduce the subject. Generally, all of us, I think, understand and appreciate there are two general approaches. One is the authoritarian parenting, okay? So What is it? In Luganda, there's a word that is used, gezako. Try and see, you will see fire. Okay? And there's that type of parenting. Try and you'll see. It's the, you will do it or else. The or else is the reason why you do it. You don't, of course, you fear whatever the consequence might be. And that tended to be the motivation. And most of us, I think, familiar with that pattern. Then the other one is the permissive parenting, which is everyone just does what they want. So this is, you know how we raise chicken. There's those which are in their pens and so on. And then there's free range systems. So this one is free range. We hope eventually things will work out. They will balance. We neither focus on suppressing the bad or upholding the good. In authoritarian parenting, we focus on suppressing the bad, control, get in line. In permissive, it's not really, we don't focus on the bad or upholding the good. In fact, we are more focused on avoiding any conflict. So it's the kind of parenting that says, hey, it's okay, daddy and mommy love you, it's okay, you can do what you want. In fact, you're 6 years old, oh, you want to cross the road, it's okay, you run across the road. And of course, that's an extreme example, but you know what I mean. But the other thing with parenting, I think, which makes it very difficult for us, is that it is subjective. Our automatic approach tends to be the way we were raised is the way we are going to raise. We have not yet paused to find out what was good and what was not so good. I won't say bad, but okay, there's some things which are bad, and maybe there's a way discipline was handled when we were raised that, honestly, you look back and you say, yeah, but what was daddy, mommy, or uncle, or my guardian thinking? But they were trying the best. Okay, they were the best they knew how. But we need to evaluate. Although what I'm saying is typically, as a way of raising us, if we were caned, chiboko, they're using the rod. If we were caned, we typically see, yes, this is the thing that works. Bring the, you start growing reeds at home. If they starved us, then also as we say, okay, I will not give you food until you do what I've told you, until you 1, 2, 3. Okay, if they called us all sorts of names, we copy and paste into our parenting. If they used the silent treatment, we copy and paste. If they said, I think at some point for us, we used to kneel on stones. It's a bit extreme. Kneel on stones or do some crazy exercises. We do that and we pass that on to our children. And sometimes what I'm saying is we need to evaluate how we were raised. Some things were good, some things were questionable, but also some things were bad. We need to be able to understand where is the balance. Okay? Either that, or sometimes we have the complete opposite. So either, for instance, if they caned you, you say, I'm going to cane my children. Or you come to this side and say, I don't want to see anyone touching my child. Teachers don't reprimand my child. I was reprimanded enough when I was growing up. As you can see, what I'm showing you is we tend to swing from one opposite to another. Now, I'm an adult learning professional and also as a certified coach, I can lend my suggestion here and say, as we raise children, the world that we are raising them for is a world which we don't know fully. 20 years from now, what will the world look like? When we were growing up, our parents did not realize that, for us, we used to, if you had that chiffon which turns like this, technology has changed. Now you have a whole tiny computer in your phone, or maybe you're looking at it from here. We had 3 channels on TV back in the day. Now you can watch TV the whole day and YouTube. The kids are growing up in a world where things have changed. Okay. In fact, now the second thing I want you to invite you put in the chat as I take maybe my last 5 minutes is, what is the thing that you feel has changed the most? Okay, between when you are growing up to today, what has changed the most, which bothers you as a parent? Please type in the chat. For some of us, it's the technology. The kids have so much. Now we are dealing with the morality, things are changing, the gay agenda, all these different things happening are facing our children. Okay, dress code, all these things. For you as a parent, please type in the chat, what has changed, which you feel we need to address this thing. Janet says, media, too much information, too much. Isabella says also, too much freedom and immorality. Thank you so much. Maureen says, today's children are more exposed than we were while growing up. Very true. in the child, for that's we used to go to a website, no, not a website, what is it called, a web cafe, to find some information. As our children have access to phones, whether it's your phone or someone else's phone, it's right there. Okay, please keep that going in the chat. Now, what I want to highlight, even as you put that in the chat, is we are going to be required to learn at 3 levels. And if you're taking notes, please take notes. 3 things we need to think about. There are 3 levels of learning, especially if we are committed to learning about parenting and discipline, even as we go through this session, as you listen to myself and the other panelists, and even as we discuss. 3 things. 1, we need to think of unlearning. So unlearning is letting go of unhelpful mindsets, assumptions that we may be having, practices that may not be healthy for the discipline of our children. Okay? 2, learning. So the 3 levels of learning is unlearning, learning, and relearning. Unlearning, what do you need to let go of? Learning, what do we need to embrace? New mindsets, principles, and practices that may be shared in this session and other materials that may be shared. And 3, relearning. I love the relearning section because it talks about what are those old truths that we need to come back to, because we shouldn't just let go of everything. Truth is truth, and truth never grows old. In terms of raising children and parenting, how can I embrace some of those old truths and principles so that they are not forgotten and dropped, because we need those ideas? Okay. Now, I wanted us to again, I invite you to consider what you may need to unlearn, to learn, and to relearn. Let me respond quickly to something, and then I'll hand over to Dr. So key things that I picked up from this, and that's what I'm going to be sharing. Let me just share that very quickly as we get started, as a foundation. So from this book, some of the things I learned, and I still practice them, at least I do my best, I'm trying to practice them in terms of growing my children God's way, is there are a couple of principles that come up. 1, children, and these are core principles that you may disagree with or you may consider. 1, I promise, we all love our children. We love our children, but they are not really our children. These children, God's children. We are only stewards. These are guiding principles, and I'm considering some old truths that we need to relearn. As a foundation, before we get into what are the practical things I should do, let's first look at the foundations. The children are God's children, but God has given them to us as stewards. So we need to take responsibility. That's 1. 2, true discipline is the matter of the heart, and it's about training the heart of the child. That's the second one. I will not go further into that. I think you understand it. Okay? It's not just about controlling behavior. It's about influencing the heart of the child so that they can make the right decisions, right actions. Okay? The third thing is it starts with the parent. A moral value system is to be trained and passed on from parent to child, and is the basis of the child's discipline. Again, when you talk about decisions, actions. And lastly, maybe an idea some of you may be new to, but others may be quite familiar with. The goal of discipline is to prepare our children as gifts to God and also as gifts to the world, long after we are gone. And that's one of the ways we leave our legacy, when we pass on a certain way of looking at the world, a certain value, a certain moral compass, and we're training and raising our children for the community. The last thing I'll want to do is to share one scripture that anchors it. So obviously, in this space, I'm very comfortable to share from the biblical perspective. And most of us have expressed the concern that immorality, the innocence of children, 6-year-old today is totally different. There's so much of that concern, okay? And when we talk about discipline, we can't talk about discipline without talking about morality, values. And the unfortunate thing is today, morals are being traded, anything goes. But there's context. So for when everything is changing, the goal is not to panic. The response, sometimes we panic, but the caution is not to panic. When everything is changing, what we need to focus on is what is remaining. And I want to look at the Bible for that, because for us, that's what we believe. We believe the Bible is the constant. Even when the world is getting crazy and celebrating all sorts of things, for us, we are anchored in the Bible. And this is what the Bible says. So the context for this scripture is actually a time when, this is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 to 7. Okay, this is the time when the Israelites were just about to get out of the promise of the desert into the promised land, and Moses was preparing them on how to build the new nation. Okay, you may be trying to build your family, new or otherwise. Now, this is what he said. I will not go too much into the detail, but let me share the 3 principles, moral instruction that we get from this scripture. I'll read it, and then I'll highlight, and then I'll hand over to the next panelist. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 to 7 says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise." Why am I telling you this? It's because there are 3 key principles that we can get from it. Okay. 1, the Lord is our God. That's the first one. 2, it starts with the parent's heart. Okay. 3, there is a clear instruction on when and how to teach and instruct our children. I'll break it down for you this way. Okay. If you see, of course, the Lord is our God is straightforward. But if you notice, the scripture implies you shall love the Lord your God. They're talking to the parent, to the children of Israel, not their children, the ones who are there. And I think it's the same message even today. As parents, we need to love the Lord our God with all our heart, our soul, and our strength. And these commands that I give you today should be in your hearts. If we don't have biblical instruction and values in our hearts, honestly, where are we getting the raw material to pass on something to our children, something that will last? Really? It's doubtful. If we don't have it here, it's difficult to know what we are passing on. Okay, especially if we need it to stay. And then the last bit is really instructional. Teach them to your children, or other versions say, impress them on your children. And the breakdown, when. So it gives a practical instruction. When is it good to talk about these instructions and these commands that you've given us? They say when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. There's a whole discussion around this, but it implies moments, especially if you're going to be teaching and instructing. Now, I know there are moments of discipline. We need to deal with this thing now. Okay, come here. Why did you do? Or let's talk about it. Let's deal with this. But generally speaking, they are highlighting moments which are called non-conflict moment. When we are sitting at home, when we are sitting in the car, when we are traveling home from school, when we are going to school, when we are walking together, when we are going to bed, in the morning when we get up. These are very good times to instruct our children on discipline and the principles that they need to be holding in their hearts. Okay. So that's what I've started with. And now to get into even more practical, how do we actually discipline our children? I want to stop sharing my screen and invite Dr. Eddy Walakira to take us to the next step. That's what I'm doing. Kindly, Claire, let me know if I'm in order or if you want to say something first.
Sam, you're so in order. But if you're like me, ladies and gentlemen, just for the sake of this space, I have decided to stay seated. But the whole time I felt like standing, I felt like my seat was not enough for me. I literally feel uneasy. So I want us to take just 1 minute break. If you feel like me, just to get out of your seat, go get a cup of tea, a glass of water, just to cool down from thus far we have come. Thank you so much, Sam. I have a few pointers for you, or a few things that you have touched, and I'm like, you should have said some more here, but I'll let you catch your breath, and then we'll get right back into it. But one of the things he said that caught my attention, one of the things that I have not seen whether he's online, Mr. Tachidambude Benon, the head of school, Green Hill Primary School, Buate. If he's there, I want to make reference to a statement he usually makes. He says, to us parents, he usually says that he calls us immigrants into this generation. and he calls our children inhabitants of this generation or this time. How do you even marry an inhabitant with we just immigrated into this whole technology generation? How do you even marry that too? I hope that as we continue discussing, that's a question on your mind, just like on mine. And I know that Mr. Walakira, Dr. Walakira and Rita will maybe say something or not, or we will continue into, but thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for keeping that chat section quite interactive. Thank you, Sam, for leading us this morning. I want to invite Dr. Walakira right now. Thus far we have been taken. How far can you take us? Over to you, Dr. Walakira.
Thank you so much, Claire. Let me put on my camera. Thank you so much for inviting me. I would like to appreciate Green Hill management for considering me to be worthy to come online and share my experience, what I know about parenting. I would like also to appreciate colleagues, fellow panelists, Sam Kimera, Mr. Sam Kimera, Rita. I know I've been learning already from what he has shared, and he has laid a good foundation for me to build upon. Let me just share a few issues here, notes here, so that we can be on the same page. Because Sam has really touched on many issues that some of them I want to pick on them. He has already introduced the concept of discipline, but I can still build a little bit about it. I need to make sure that my screen is showing properly. So I'm experiencing some challenges here. Okay. Okay, I hope I can move this on. All right. Sam, you have done a very good job for me. You've done justice to the topic, so I don't have to experience any issues. There are a few questions we always need to raise when we think about the issue of parenting. One of them is that what type of children do I want to have when they grow up? What should they become? What type of behavior should they exhibit or demonstrate when they go out there? These are very important points because, like some are shared, parents honestly love their children, many parents. They try to do their best. And unfortunately, sometimes without being aware of what we are doing, we end up spoiling our children. So when we talk about the concept of discipline, I think it is one of the core elements that we all want to address. In a simple way, we can talk about discipline as teaching children good behavior or good manners. And we know that, like Sam again has mentioned, you cannot teach children good manners without doing something that regulates this behavior. And there must be a standard when you are regulating behavior. In other words, you must have a particular code of conduct in place, which you have communicated verbally. I've heard about some families where even they write these principles, do's and don'ts, for children to follow. But at least there must be a set of rules and regulations that children are expected to comply with within a home setting, within a school setting, or within the community. Because if you don't have that, and if you don't create that type of environment, then the expectations will be different from you, the parent, and also the children. And that's when you start to talk about misbehavior. This child of mine does not do ABC. But did you communicate clearly what they have to do and what they don't have to do? So this is very, very important. There is a definition there, and I see two things: teaching acceptable behaviors, and what Sam has mentioned, and learning maladaptive behaviors. So those are very important things. What are you teaching, and what are you helping a child to unlearn? But in doing that, you must then provide support, guidance, and direction, so that the behavior you want the child to demonstrate, is inculcated, comes out more clearly. So these authors go ahead to give us those elements that constitute or must underlie the practice of teaching discipline. And I don't want to go into all of these details, but I want to be more practical. One thing we shouldn't forget, people, because all of us become parents without going through formal training to become a parent. So what we normally transmit, what we do is what we learned over the years. But based on research and experience, you discover that certain things that you do when you're raising your children, you must have an intention. So you must be deliberate if you want a good outcome. And at the same time, you must be, to some extent, consistent, which we can look at here as being systematic. Those two things are very critical if you are to nurture discipline among children. But some people don't mind about these issues of inculcating discipline, making sure that children will become what they want maybe to become. And hopefully they think that it will be, it will just come maybe by accident or somehow. Why is it important to focus on teaching discipline? One, for children to be safe and secure, they need to have a degree of discipline. For example, you wake up each morning and you know that border borders cause a lot of accidents. So you tell your child that now I want you to use mostly taxis. And if you are to use a border, please carry a helmet. I don't want you to come at home beyond this time. And because if it is maybe 8, 9, lots of things are likely to happen to your child. So they will be safe and secure if they follow certain principles and a code of conduct. We know that children who comply with a set of rules, who are guided within a spirit of love and care, they are likely to perform better within school. So their academic grades are likely to be more impressive. Have you ever seen a situation where you have an adult, but who always wastes time? Year after year, they plan to do something, but they never do it. Now, it doesn't happen as an accident. The problem sometimes is that in the process of growing up, the parents never created an environment where children can look at themselves, plan for their time, and be, consistently do certain things. So when they grow up, you end up seeing a person, wasting time year after year. They don't have any element of good planning and setting goals and achieving them. So utilization of time becomes a problem and many other things. So teaching discipline, it is for your benefit as a parent, but also for the benefit of the child that God has given you, as Mr. Kimera has told us. If you don't want your child to become anxious and also to experience mental health issues, then that is one of the things you have to prioritize. I can give you an example. I know of a parent whose daughter, each time they give them homework, school assignments. Now the daughter had her own way of doing things, and many times she would do this homework very late. And when it came to going back to school, you would see that she would be very anxious. She would become very unsettled. And in the process, she would even fall sick. Why? Because she would not follow, certain principles or guidelines to do this homework in time. So when you teach discipline, these are some of the things that you can preempt and make sure that your child does not develop these issues. And many other, reasons as to why it is important to teach discipline. If I can pick out one more without taking a lot of time, if you want to have a child who will be self-motivated, who is likely to perform better even at work, then it's high time that you made this a priority. So I'm emphasizing this because many of us parents, we tend to think that nurturing discipline will happen as an accident. It has to be a systematic process and has to be deliberate. There has been a tendency to think about discipline as simply administering punishment due to misbehavior. And what Sam has actually given us, that has been always the attitude, even when you make use of dictionaries or some authors. So discipline for most of the parents is considered to be synonymous with administering punishment. And when it comes to our communities here, it is not just any type of punishment, but it is also corporal punishment. But now when you look at what we are being told today, and as the world has evolved over time, corporal punishment is something that has been ruled out at home and in schools and anywhere. But I know many parents will say, if you don't use a stick to moderate the behavior of your child, then something fundamentally wrong will happen to the child. The child will become defiant, oppositional, will become difficult to manage. There are some limits for those of you who may want to know about, because one of the questions that was said to me was, what is the boundary between discipline and abuse and violence? And that one needs to be understood. If, for example, corporal punishment involves physical force to cause harm, some degree of harm or comfort or pain, to what extent can it be used? Is it even acceptable? If we have laws in place, should we follow them 100% or to some degree? And there are those questions that rise. Are these children for the state or my children? Who is giving me guidance on what to do and what to do? But corporal punishment, is something that has been, commonly discussed, and it's one of the disciplinary measures that parents use. It involves a lot of cruelty. It involves a lot of physical activities, which exert a lot of pain on the child. Now, if I take you a little bit because one of the questions that Claire wanted me to clarify was, how far should we go in doing certain things? But I'm sorry, my screen keeps bringing lots of things here, and I think I need to find a way to get them. We have the CRC, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, that has sort of given us guidance on what nation states should do and should not do. Okay, fine, I've succeeded to get the thing off my screen. Okay. Article 37 requires that states parties must ensure that no child is subjected to torture or other cruel or inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, irrespective of whether children are at home or in schools. I know you have many reasons that you are going to raise because all of us have been brought up this way and we feel like we must use a stick. Many times it is because we have run short of ideas on how best we can actually teach discipline. The same has been domesticated, the international law within our national laws. So the Uganda Constitution also comes out very clearly and prohibits any person to be tortured or to be treated in a cruel, inhuman, and a degrading way. So the same applies to children because they are not simply half human beings, but they are complete human beings. Now, before we look at the disciplinary approaches, someone may ask, how have we come to this point that certain disciplinary approaches actually are being discouraged to the point that they have even become criminalized? When you look at the stages of the evolution of human progress, at some stage, we were mostly a savage society, then transited to a barbaric society, and currently we are being talked about as people who are living in a age of civilization. How far that is true, that is for each one of us also to examine, because it appears that actually we are doing worse things today compared to what our ancestors did. But from a human rights point of view, if you were a savage society, you were expected to use extreme cruelty and brutality, for these two elements. And if you are within a civilization dispensation, you are considered to have rights, which are God-given entitlements. These are not begged for, but you must be, allowed to experience them. How far this can be put into practice is a gray area for, from one community, from one family to another, from one country to another. So parenting and whichever disciplinary approaches we may talk about, to a great extent, is being shaped by these global movements, which have also, affected us locally. So parenting has to be done within the context of rights of children. It has to be done with, taking into account that not only children, but also many other groups have claimed their rights, the women, the workers, and many groups are coming up. There are rights, so-called rights, where, which are contested depending on a particular given, a given belief, community, or society. And also that one is understandable. So there are contentions even when we talk about what must be done in raising children and what shouldn't be done. So having given that sort of background, I want us to look at the approaches to discipline that are commonly used. I have to point out very clearly that these approaches that I want to talk about have already been discussed in the previous webinar, but also some has already highlighted to some extent these approaches. But it is important to understand, because this is what research tells us, and this is what we see in practice, but possibly something more can be identified from these. All right. If you look at the works of Baumrind, Maccabee, and Martin, based on their research and based on their experience, they were able to group what parents normally do in raising their children within these 4 categories. Now, without going so much into the details, the point I want to make is that the approaches to discipline do not lie outside of these approaches. And also, many parents, you cannot say that they are exclusively using a permissive approach. Sometimes there is some degree of permissiveness, or there is some degree of neglect, or some degree of being authoritarian. So it depends and varies from one parent to another parent. But broadly, when you develop a score, you can see that someone leans more to a particular style of parenting, to a particular style of teaching discipline, to a particular style of enforcing discipline among children. If I would briefly talk about permissive approaches that parents use, this is a challenge to most of the parents, especially the so-called middle income parents, the educated parents who are very busy. Many times, maybe they are not even at home. They find themselves in a catch-22, and maybe one way to find a way to connect with their children is to create an atmosphere that makes them, feel more comfortable to do as much as they want. In a way, if you look at these variables, we have what we call control. Control is about use of power. Do these parents feel like they are in a position to be strict, to give directions to their children? Do they actually do it? Do they even set rules, the do's and don'ts within a home setting? What you see here is actually the opposite. There are many attractions within a family setting. For example, today we can talk about a telephone. You give your daughter of 12 years a telephone. Then they are able to access each and everything they want because it has internet. You give them a tablet, it will do the same function. You have a television and it is digital television. They will be in a position to watch each and every program. Now, these objects from the science of parenting become now the parents of the child, because for you, you are absent. You have allowed each and everything to go into their minds. So the end result is that you are likely to have a child who exhibits particular characteristics, and I'll be sharing with you a table because each of these approaches has implications on the health of the child, on how they will become, what type of careers they can do, how will they be, and how they will be accepted within society. I was talking with a reverend just last week, and she gave me a story that she was teaching a confirmation class and observed that some kids were busy, testing drugs. Then when she identified this group, she called the parents, but some parents would never believe that kids actually were using drugs. So their reaction was almost, if there were the reverend and other people are not around, some parents maybe would have hurt their kids so badly. But some of the parents actually perceived the practice to be okay. So those are the permissive parents. They didn't see any problem with it. They were saying, okay, it's okay, they can try a little bit. You need to give them freedom, to test everything. Maybe when they grow up, they can be able to understand what is right and what is wrong. So that is permissive parenting. This parent did not know that these drugs are addictive. They have an effect on a child's emotions, psychology, and also, they end up getting attached to these products, and then they make fools of themselves. Many parents do not have any consideration about how their kids should dress, and it can also be a problem. There is a parent that I saw who came out of her car. It was in the morning, and she was dropping a kid at a particular school, and she was half naked because the lower part, she was putting on a skirt, a see-through skirt. And then the teachers were shocked and told her to go back in the car so that they pick the kid themselves. This parent didn't have any problem with this type of behavior. There was a situation where a girl at Makerere University, she was around 20, told me that I got scared at home at night. So since I got nightmares, I decided to start sleeping with my father. So we sleep in the same bed. This is a girl of 20. And I know that nothing happened, but it is something that shocked me. Now, those are some of the things that confront our children. When it comes to giving them permission, for example, they can go and spend, do sleepovers with their friends. Do you know what is happening? Others are eating themselves to death. Now, these are the things that have lots of implications on the health, both emotional, physical, and psychological well-being of children. Now, I won't be going into each of these details, but I can pick out a few others. For this one, which is uninvolved parents, we know about many single parent families right now. And mostly it is the female gender who is taking care of the child, the mothers in our context here. When I go in Europe, when I use the concept mothers, I'm careful because sometimes they can start to accuse you that you don't respect, other mothers in quotes. And those mothers may be actually male figures, but they are called mothers. But there is a tendency here for many men and women to fall in love and have children out of these relationships. But then the relationships are short-lived. Then females, the mothers mostly bring up the children. The fathers are less involved. They are uninvolved. Some of them may be half involved. Maybe they go to visit the kids and check on them. But many others don't care what goes on. So these are neglectful parents. They are absent in the lives of children. Maybe they got other women, or they don't even want to hear about it. Now, in the future, this is what you see when you have these kids, that they will grow up and some of them actually will succeed in life, but they won't have any connection with one of the parents who was not in their lives. So it has implications. But also if you dig deeper, why has it come to this point? Because the number of single parent families now is rising every single day. Are there some risk factors at the family level, or as vulnerabilities to an individual that cause them to go into the situation. All right. So again, you can see there are lots of variants for the neglectful parents, but broadly you can see what they exhibit, what they do, and what they don't do. If I come to the second last, let me skip a little bit and talk about authoritarian, which some also mentioned. We always hear about parents who harm their children. They don't harm their children alone, but also their partners. You have heard about men who have cut off the hands of women, who have sold the harvest without authorization from the husband. You have heard about others who have done more horrible things. So within a human being, there is that element where people want to use power. Power in a way that can harm another, and they don't create any room for discussion, no room for negotiation. And if you are at the place of work, and for example, you comment about someone's behavior, somebody becomes terribly annoyed, they cut off the communication. They start now to treat you as an enemy. Then you need to dig deeper and look at their early childhood experiences. Who were the parents within their lives? And what were they doing? They feel like you don't have even the audacity to comment about how they dress, how they greet, how they do their work. Maybe it emerges from early childhood experiences where someone actually exerted too much power on this person to the extent that they don't also within their minds have room to receive any sort of guidance or even innocent observations. So what you see here is that there is absence of love, absence of constructive communication. If it is one way, it must be one way. There is no dialogue. Surprisingly, when you create an environment of discussion with your children, you discover that they have many brilliant ideas. And that one makes them to become part of the family. Even when you make investments and you consult them, however young they are, or take them to your project and start to ask them ideas. Sometimes you give them names of particular business arms, give them their names, invite them to participate in, here and there. You will be surprised how amazing they can be, and how, when it comes to a point that you have retired or even passed on, that they can carry on that business. But if you use this approach alone, then you can't build a family legacy. Kids will run away from your home, especially girls. If, for example, they engaged in some relationships, then they won't come back, because the moment you get to know that she's pregnant, she feels like, if I go back home, my father will kill me. My mother will do this to me. So those forms of parenting are what we call outdated. You have to use power with a certain degree of responsibility and use it within a context of care, being caring, being passionate, being empathetic, etc. The last one is what most of you have also been talking about, which is authoritative. This is where the form of parenting and also approach to discipline that most of the people would like to become and to be. Because although you use power, you use it in a way that when you are to correct your child, you explain to them why you are doing ABC. It is more democratic. The expectations will be clearly stipulated. Your expectations, what you expect them to do, to become, where they should be at what particular time. And you are more responsive you get concerned about what goes on in their lives. If they are not happy, you can ask questions. If they are extremely happy, you join them and also try to know what is it that has made them extremely happy. If you ever came back home and you found everybody laughing and jumping, by the moment you entered, everybody went silent. They stop, they stop talking and nothing goes on. Then you know that you are within a category of terrorists. You have taken away their peace. But authoritative parenting gives you a different way, a different dynamic on how to handle your children. Now, as I come towards the end, I was asked, what are the implications of these approaches to parenting on the health of children, on their development, etc. Now, if you are too permissive, you are likely to have obese children. If, for example, you allow them to eat each and everything they want, they will be uncontrolled. So your child will become old when they turn 20. There is a machine here in Kampala which calculates the age of a human being, depending on your level of health, fitness. So a child of, for example, 16 years, this one may not look so clear, could be about 13 years, 14 years. They will end up giving her or him 90 years. You'll be surprised. So that means that he's knocking on the door of death. Children are likely to grow without a value system. They will be ill-mannered. They will lack self-control. Self-control. Have you ever been with a person who lacks self-control? If they are annoyed, they will explode. And everybody will know at the workplace because they lack self-control. They can't control their emotions. In a way, they lack what we call social intelligence and emotional intelligence. They are scoring so poorly. But lack of self-control may also be expressed in other ways. For example, when somebody desires to eat, they can never stop eating. When somebody desires to have sex, they may never stop having sex. However much they have a husband or a wife or a girlfriend, they will move from one to another. And those ones emerge from permissive parenting because that sense of self-discipline was not transmitted within the life of the child. There are other consequences like poor school performance, being less successful in life, and also often being exposed to harm. Now, when you are neglectful as a parent, then children will have very, they will have less connection with you. It is also related to having no, bonding. Bonding is about having those relationships that are so strong because a bond is a form of group or material. If, for example, you are in a manufacturing factory, what they use to bring elements together so that wherever you go for many years, they will stay together. Now, in a parenting situation, a parent must be able to transmit a form of love, communication, association, expression, facial or visual, that creates that form of connection. Women, normally mothers build bonding relationships that are so strong, much more than those of men, because they are always in the lives of their children, much more than men. But if you are neglectful, this is what is likely to happen. Lots more, and if you are authoritative, I think I've gone through many of those issues that are likely to be demonstrated by your children. But this is a good form of parenting, and we are told that children are likely to perform better at school. They're likely to be more loving. They're likely to be sensitive about the emotions of others or issues that others experience. They are also likely to be high performers if they are in employment. But if you use an approach which is authoritarian, then because you are transmitting violence, abuse, then most likely this will also replicate and reproduce violence. If you have heard about families that separate every now and then, there is no room for the girl or for the man and the wife to dialogue, because there was always no dialogue between the parents and the child. It is either you follow my way or you follow my way. So that is likely to be reproduced within a family setting. It's likely to be reproduced within a school setting, etc. They're likely to become aggressive and defiant. They will experience mental health problems. They can also be leaders. You have heard about leaders in the USA and leaders here. When you look at the style of how they relate with others, you can dig deep and say, okay, during childhood, this could have happened, or this was not done. So there are consequences to forms of parenting. Now, I am using 1 more minute so that my colleague Rita can can come and share with us. Now, from research, if, for example, you're using a form of parenting that has corporal punishment, that has cruel treatment, then we categorize you as transmitting violence to the children. And you'll know that at any point in time, the kids are likely to develop depressive disorders at some point and suicidal attempts. But what also is not so clear are what are the mitigating factors. Within our communities here, although some parents can be very cruel, there is a community system, a collective way of bringing up children, especially in the rural areas. And you have an extended family that so others try to express love, and maybe there is a moderating effect to some of these behaviors and consequences. Poor education attainment will always be one of the possibilities. And also within a marital relationship, they will perpetrate but also experience violence. If you see that some children experience lots of STIs, it could be linked also to failure to do certain things in their lives, that they can't also, their levels of sexuality expose them to danger, or how they control their sexual behavior exposes them to danger. You can see many other things like drug misuse, self-harm, and also, being predisposed to other diseases. Okay, now I think my time is up. I should be now ready to pass over the microphone to Claire so that she invites our next presenter. Thank you so very much. Within these slides, I've talked about a few other themes, but I know my colleagues are already talking about these issues, but then we can have these discussed. Rather, when I share the slides, you can have access to some of these slides and details. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. I'm sure if this was a physical interaction, we would be giving you flowers and sodas for such an elaborate presentation, especially bring it from the academic side. So thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. You mentioned the issue of discipline versus corporal punishment. I hope that is something we can get back right into. You mentioned something about there are some nations where mothers are men. I want to say that we are Green Hill Primary School, we are Green Hill Schools, and on our platform, in our school setting, for us as Green Hill, we believe that a mother is only and only a woman. We are not ashamed to say that. We are not embarrassed to say that, because God created them male and female and nothing else. Only a woman has the reproductive organ to be able to carry and can be called a mother. So as Green Hill, we are not shy about that. So please don't worry about being right about what is right according to the biblical principles. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for keeping here with us. And now I want to introduce Mrs. Kasi Ritah. Like I mentioned earlier, for the benefit of those who came in a bit, who joined us later, she is an accountant, trained accountant. She used to be a banker. She's now a businesswoman. She's a parent. Her oldest is 25. That means she has experience of over 25 years of parenting. So I'll let her speak for herself. Over to you, Ritah. You're very welcome.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. I hope, Gerard, you're ready with my slides. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ritah Kasi. I'm a mother of 6. I think I've overdone all of you. A mother of 6. I think I was still in the olden days. I was not yet in the 21st century where things have changed, but I managed to, I'm thankful to God that I have 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. 2 have graduated, and I'm still waiting on the rest to come along. I'm glad to be part of this. That is one of them. That one has just graduated. She graduated this year, and that was graduated last year. So I'm proud. They make me proud, and I'm a proud mother because they've come this far. And I think I'm part of this. Much as they say in Uganda, the good children go to the father and the bad ones go to the mother. So, but at least I'm behind all this success. So my presentation is about, but I better have to upload the doctor and Sam. Those were great presentations. They were wonderful. I hope I'll also get flowers from Claire at the end of my presentation. So my presentation is about how to address common discipline challenges and explore proactive solutions. We've all heard about the discipline challenges. Some of them have been mentioned. They've been mentioned in the previous presentations, but we have to first of all look at how has raising children changed in this era. Let me take my example. The way things were done before in the past, and now things have completely changed. So parenting styles have changed over the years, giving children more freedom and independence. We used to do things differently. We used to go to school without shoes, but now it's much as such things are still in existence, but around the city, you can never find a kid going without shoes to school. But why? Because the countries are growing, the world is growing. That's why we are seeing a lot of changes in the parenting styles. One thing that has failed as parents is balancing work and family. We are becoming extremely busy in order to ensure that our families get the basic needs. Long ago, our mothers used not to work, but the fathers used to look for whatever to ensure that everything is covered at home. But now it is both parents that have to take part. So, and things are tight. So we are spending more time at work than being with family. Another thing is dealing with stress and mental health, because a lot is happening. We are finding it hard. A lot of changes in the world. We have, there is insufficient pay, there are epidemics, there are climate changes, the seasons have changed. We find that you will have planned for something and things will change. Now, like the climate, the seasons have changed. People invest a lot in farming, and the season change, and there'll be a total collapse of a project. The epidemics, the Ebola, the Corona, we found ourselves home with the children. somehow we felt like we needed to take them to school and we could not. So this has brought in a lot of stress, and we are not able to, things have changed over time, like raising, like with there is a risk of common discipline challenges. Another one we can look at is raising children in the digital world. There is technology has changed over time. Like, was it a professor or Sam who mentioned we used to have one TV a long time ago, and this is a TV that would be switched on like at 6. But now we have the gadgets, we have the TVs, we have everything around us. So it is really becoming hard for us as parents to monitor our children, to be around them and see whatever is going on in their lives. Because we are aware, we are not able to see whatever is going on in their lives. So by the time you come in to check on them, they could be sleeping, and now they've already consumed a lot via the internet and all that. Managing home on the household, we all know things have changed over time. Salaries are not increasing, but the cost of living is high. What do you do as a parent? You have to go an extra mile to ensure that you provide for your family. That is creating less time for family and the children in general, because they are the most important things in our, most important in our homes. Teaching children about money. Our children, we have not created time to teach our children about the use of money, spending it and earning it. We only have time to take them to the ATMs, we withdraw this money. So they know in them, they know that money is just dispensed at the ATM. We don't tell them how we toil to get this money. So things have changed. Maybe long ago, they didn't know about the money. It would take a kid to know, a kid will not know about money. But now kids are sharp, they know about the money, but how do we get this money? Another thing is helping them stay online or outside because of the increase in all kinds of crimes. Because we have less time to be around our children, and you know, children are very inquisitive, they will always try to find out what is going on. Peer pressure is too much. I think when we all go around town, around the city, around those malls, you will find children, teenagers all over the place. Teenagers who, and you know what happens there. These kids do drugs, they pick on all the bad behavior. So like things have changed compared to the past, and now we are not there because we are hustling. And you know, kids are finding their way because they are so inquisitive, they are finding their way out to discover new things. Hence, they are falling into trouble, and we are coming in later. So parents have taken on improper methods of raising children, like I've mentioned, the TVs, the gadgets. We are leaving them to house helps, and we are not giving them enough time. So another one to look at is how parents can realistically juggle the complex work dynamics and raising well-rounded children. One of them is prioritize. We have, whether we like it or not, we have to create time for our families. That's the only way we shall get the best out of our children. We have to create the time. That's the only way we can create, that's the only way we can get the best out of them. Then another one is setting limits. What can your child do and when? We have to be specific and set specific rules, and expectations should be presented in such a way that the children understand and explain in their own words. For example, why shouldn't a child should be in position to tell her to explain, why am I supposed to pray before I go to bed? Why am I supposed to go to bed like at 8? So the kid must be able to explain that, because prayer is paramount. When we bring up our children while they know God, is something very important. It also helps us bring them up. Children must know, why should I go to bed early? You know, they have to be in position to explain. So limits keep children safe and show that they can handle more responsibilities. We also have to reset expectations, know your child's strengths and weaknesses, focus on what they can do, and don't focus on what they cannot do. Then another one is have dedicated workspaces and time to do the different activities. A child must know that I'm not supposed to play football in the house. A child must know that when I come home, I have to do homework and I have to do it in the study room. So we have to have these dedicated workspaces in our homes. Check in, monitor, and evaluate the children's progress or lack of progress. This duty has to be performed by us, as the parents. You know, we are used to daily. Of course, we have a lot to do, but we don't have to delegate everything. We have to be present. So please, mothers, fathers, let us create time for our children and see them through, because we are with them a few years, and with time they'll have to go. So those few years, let's make good of them, of the best out of them. We have to share the load at some point. You know, at some point you feel exhausted. Now, me, I'm a mother of 6. You know, you go through the different stages when they are teenagers, when they are babies, but somehow you feel overwhelmed and you have to call in relatives, friends, mentors, even our teachers. Our teachers, we really appreciate you are doing a great job. Then you have to practice stress busting steps. This is all about how to juggle the complex work dynamics and raise well-rounded children. We have to come up with stress busting steps. We have to exercise, stay healthy. We need to eat healthy. These are common things now. Then network. I know here at our village, there are a group of people who are brisk walkers. They go out every Saturday, they brisk walk, and you know, that's kind of stress relieving. Try to stay positive and relax. The more stress, the worse your mood, and the harder it will be to get things done. Then the last one is the line between punishment and discipline. How far is too far as regards discipline? Dr. and Sam have really presented well on discipline. I'm not going to repeat, to define discipline again. But while punishment focuses on a child suffer for breaking the rules, discipline is about teaching them how to make a better choice. We have come up with smart ways of disciplining you have to come up with smart ways of disciplining than punishing them to get the best out of them. And one of them we should look at is treat your child with respect as you discipline them. Handle them calmly. Hence, that is how you will win their trust. For example, let them come up with an activity. I remember my kid was somehow involved in something bad at school. And the school advised us, please let us take it on, let us handle this, because we came with all the vigor, we have to punish these kids. How can they disappoint us? What don't they have? So the school advised us, please let us handle this. They made up, plant trees. And these are trees that are monitored, are taken care of by the same kids. So whenever they look at such things, they'll know that in case I'm not supposed to do such a thing again, because it will always remind them of the wrong thing they need. So they will not go back to that thing again. Then another one is give effective instruction for their children to follow and stick to them. For example, you tell them there is no going out to play before lunch. The morning hours are for doing housework. And, you know, involving in the home, you should be involved in the home. You should do a number of activities. And then after we can go and play. Then the other one is use natural consequences like no phones, no TV, no visiting friends. That is another way like to discipline our children. We shouldn't use actions that harm the mental and physical being of the children. For example, we don't have to deny them food. We don't have to lock them outside. We don't have to let them sleep with the animals, you know, guys, the settings of our homes. We don't have to do that to them. So we don't beat them beyond recognition. Beyond recognition, children, some parents still cane children. So please, we need to leave that, let it go. That one should be in the past. Then you have to ensure when you discipline, stand by what you say. If you say there is no TV for a full week, ensure that happens. Because when you relax, the kid will not take you seriously. So we need to stick to what we said. Solve the problem together. Sit with these children. By the way, if you punish, you will send away the kid. That kid will never be close to you. But if you sit down with them, discuss with them, talk about the issue, they will understand. We need to provide praise for good behavior. Don't stick on the bad only. Please, when your child does something good, you know, in the olden days, the parents would not want us to know that they're happy about what we've done. But now, because things have changed, we need to move with the trends. We have to appreciate these kids. You take them out. If you can't afford, you go to the nearest shop. Go to the nearest shop, buy a sweet for that kid. I'm sure that will stick to their mind, and they will not have to. They won't forget. View bad behavior as a sign that your child has a problem. Before disciplining, try to understand and take action. We have to go into the depths and find out this kid is behaving this manner, what could be the problem? So then we can act after. Another one is show your child the consequences of bad behavior. We have children's prison. You can visit with them. You can take them there. I'm sure they'll come out as changed children. You go to children drug abuse hospitals. Show them that when you take a drug, when you take some substance that is not good, or you know such a kind of substance that will do harm to you, and you will end up in the hospital. That is time wasted. You will not go to school. You will not have time to be with your siblings or relatives. So, and also watch documentaries. These are all over. We have a number of programs on our TVs. Watch a documentary or call in an expert to help your child. So the most important thing is getting your child out of the comfort zone. Work with them. Do housework with them. Don't just tell them, you go do. Please be involved, be with them, work with them, and don't leave everything to the maid. This will help you get the best out of these children. In this case, you will not be punishing them. Instead, you will be making them better persons. Thank you, Claire.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rita. Most definitely, I know that you have received the flowers. So if you know how to give flowers, those online, kindly share, and let's give Rita some flowers this morning. Those are flowers for you.
Yes, thank you.
Especially as a mother with your 25 or more years of experience. The flowers are there coming. Yes, those are flowers for you. And I am sure you're waiting for a bottle of soda. Ladies and gentlemen, dear parents, this is a moment that we want to get into a brief time of interaction. And first of all, I want to let you know that there's a quiz that we've shared in the chat section. Please take a few minutes to fill it in, to know your parenting style, where you belong. Is it authoritative, authoritarian, delegative, democratic, or the permissive parent? I have done mine, and I will tell you if you see me in person. But for now, let's take just a minute just to do that. But for now, I want to engage the panelists on a number of questions that have come up over time. And my first question is to Sam. Sam, you talked about raising children. We were raised another generation, but we are called to raise children for another generation. Like I said earlier, if I use the words of Mr. Chirambude, we are digital immigrants in an environment of digital inhabitants. How do we raise our children any different from how we were raised? Can we even do that? How do we strike the balance even with that? Over to you, Sam.
It's such a huge question, Claire. How much time do you want me to use?
Yeah, please. We have 15 minutes to close, so please.
Okay, I'll try to make it very brief, but also, in addition to giving Rita her flowers, as she was sharing, I thought of an image that would depict what she was talking about, boundaries. I think it has been a serious session, so it is useful to laugh a bit here. You know, when as parents, we say, my child doesn't need boundaries. So I'm sharing an image. I hope you can all see. When we say children don't need boundaries, this is what can happen. God forbid that your child does not need boundaries and this kind of thing happens. But what I wanted maybe to in response to what I've been asked is, I thought that I was having, there's a model here that I wanted to share. It's called the parenting funnel. And this is what, today we are raising our children, generally speaking, we want to raise them like this, parenting funnel, but upside down. Because for us who were started like with, extreme measures, maybe we want to be friends with our 5-year-olds, then we go to coaching, then train. Then finally, when they're adults, we want to push them into discipline. But by that time, it's too late. By that time, if there's no time to go into the full discussion, there's a lot of information online about the parenting funnel, and it's really helpful. We need to start the right way up. So this is the wrong way, just so you know. This is the wrong way. If we want our babies to be our friends, and then we get into coaching, and then training, and then discipline at the end, it's important that we take it this way. The right side up is 0 to 5. I guess this directly answering your question. The right direction is to know that as, at this earlier ages, especially for myself and others who have younger children, we need to be directly responsible for the children's discipline. This is the action, this is the thought, this is why we're doing this is what needs to be done. So it's a bit more stringent, as then we move to establishing authority to train the heart and like Rita said, helping them understand why. For us, our parents mostly never told us why. You are not allowed to ask questions and so on. But now, when the discipline is established, then we can get into the training where we say, okay, this is why we do this. This is why we do this. I know Doctor also mentioned later on, as you build and then involve them and you're building trust and relationship and they're involved in projects, they are not just things you're doing on your own. You invite them. There's coaching. Now you're in charge of this. What would you do? Now we have chickens. What would you do? We have a small shop. What would you do? That kind of thing. And then when they grow up, if they learn how to use those freedoms naturally, then we end up at friendship later in the later years. And generally speaking, this is what that parenting funnel looks like. I just wanted to show you this model in answer to your question in developing responsibility, but first we start with authority. And I think that's a healthy balance. Claire, over to you.
Wow, I think that's quite helpful. I like the funnel. it's a nice way to actually think, because sometimes we want to be friends to our children and not their parents. So that is that balance is quite difficult. So you said, but I'm your friend, but I'm your parent. How do you even strike that balance? Maybe Rita could share with us, how do we strike then the balance between being our child's friend and the parent, where we can actually balance the, allow me to say the road and, how do we balance between being our children's friends and coming out forcefully? Rita, what's your comment on that? Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Rita may have stepped away. Maybe doctor can weigh in.
Yeah. Doctor, your comment on
Hello?
Yeah,
There
she's back.
that. How do you strike the balance there? Rita has come. She's on.
Okay.
Yes.
Claire,
Yes,
I'm
please.
thinking,
Yes.
my thinking is if we start early, like when the kids are still little, we talk to them, we are with them all the time. I think that's the only way we can strike that balance. We need to bring them up, you know, of course, not in a hard way, but we need to be friendly. Am I answering the question? We need to be friends with these kids when they're still little, and when they are growing up, they will know that, yes, I think what mom is saying is right. I think I need to do what mommy says, or what it says, or what auntie says. So I think it needs to begin at a tender age as they grow up.
Doctor had a comment as well.
Yes, please.
Because you had invited me to come and slop in anyway. There is what we call inductive reasoning. Children at different ages have different capabilities. Those at the stage like what Sam is showing us, there are those that you can engage with, with constructively. So you must have, if like an incident of misbehavior is identified, rather than, busting out and, throwing everything against the child, reason with them, sit and see why are they doing this thing, what is the motivation, establish a dialogue, because some people are bent on only one aspect of discipline, its enforcement, without discussing with the kids. But as you negotiate, so parenting involves an aspect of, reasoning with the child, creating dialogue, and also, using constructive communication. And I think a child will know when they have done something wrong and what the implications are on their lives. And like Claire has emphasized, and also Sam, the spiritual aspect is also very important, because if you please your parents, God is also pleased with you. Whatever resource that you think is considered, is positive in, in building your relationship and helping children learn and helping them and guiding them to follow the rules, please use it, because it will help you and it will help the child. Thank you. Over.
Awesome. I once heard that the bloodline of any relationship is communication. Once I thought it just works in marriage, but I think it works in every relationships. In every relationship, it works in marriage. It works in now I'm speaking like a counselor. Finally, it works in marriage. It works in parenting. It works with friends. Because from what I have heard, as they concluded, let's talk with our children. Half the time we are talking to our children. Half the time we are talking over our children. I believe children are able to hear, they are able to listen, they have a certain level of understanding. So if God help us to communicate way better with our children. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to bring this to a close. Why? Because time is never our friend. Isn't that so sad? I know you would love to go on. I'm sure I'd love to go on to learn a little bit more how I can raise my beautiful girls even better. But because of time, we will bring this to a close. So I'm going to invite Sam, then I'm going to start with Rita, then Dr. Walakira and Sam will go last, just to share with us your parting shots. What would you like to tell us? One thing that you're like, this one thing, dear parents, in all I have said, these are my parting shots. Over to you, Rita. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Claire. I think my shots could my serious shot could go to check in, monitor, and evaluating what are the progress of our children. It all comes back to being present in our children's lives. We are too busy. Of course, there is need for us to be away, but these are important people in our lives. So we have to create the time, whether we like it or not, whether there's something that has to make us go away, like it is a must. Oh, you can go, but you can compensate for that time. Let us be present. Me, myself, I was working in the bar, but in some way I left employment because I wanted to create time for my family, for my children. I wanted to be present. I wanted to have the best. I wanted to have the best out of them. And all that I can say as my shot for that day is creating the time. Let's have the time, whether we like it or not. Thank you. Claire?
Claire, I think
Yes, I'm waiting on Doctor now. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Claire, for this opportunity. And I would like to thank the participants for, creating time to be part of this webinar. In the process of raising children, primarily you have to make sure that you make them your friends, but in a responsible way, because once you cross the line of irresponsibility, then you have lost them. Secondly, we need to teach children in our generation self-control. If they don't learn how to live without certain things, then they will become monsters to you. And also there will be a cake wherever they go, because if you hear incidences of corruption, is that because people have learned not to live within their limits. So teach them self-control. Now, finally, we have to identify our weaknesses as parents and work towards bridging them. That's why if you hear an opportunity about a parenting session or training or anything to do with child protection, create room and enroll so that you build your capacity, because parenting is a profession and a very noble profession, as Sam has told us, based on the Bible and other religious books. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much, fellow panelists. Thank you so much, participants online. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I guess I'll go straight forward. Claire, is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll try to make it very quick. There's a gentleman, a leadership guru called John Maxwell. One time a young gentleman walked up to him and said, I want to do what you do. I want to learn everything, that you do. I love what you do. I am admiring how you have all this influence around the world and you have all this impact. What's the one thing I need to learn so that I do what you do? And John Maxwell paused afterwards. He smiled and then he said, "Young man, listen, the one thing that you need to know about doing what I do is that there is more than one thing you need to know about me before you can do what I do." And I think parenting is the same way. There's more than one thing to know. I know I'm sure all of us had done extra preparation. Doctor had a lot more slides. Rita, she has raised the 25-year-old. She could take a whole another month and we would still be learning. There's so much more. Love languages, father's role, what's the father's role? Talking about the child's conscience, respect for authority, obedience, all those things. We know them in different portions, and there's more than one thing we need to know. So my parting shots would be two things. One, we need to figure out what do we need to unlearn, what is unhealthy for our disciplining journey with our children. What do we need to learn that we have lost, that we need to get back? What is new that we need to get in? And what do we need to relearn? Something that is an old truth that we may be letting go, that we may be holding back to. So what do we need to relearn, learn, and unlearn? And lastly, when we're building, I guess picking up for what Dr. just said, if anyone is building, and I know many people are building and have built here, well, there's a thing called a spirit level, to make sure that they're building the walls straight and they don't leave it to intuition and say, "Oh, hey, let's go to get it out." No, there's a spirit level. And I love that word, spirit level, to bring it back to a biblical standpoint. We need to invite the Holy Spirit to help us to understand how we can raise these children. Because at the end of the day, they're not our children, they are God's children, but we have that responsibility and we need to be serious about that responsibility. That's my parting shot.
Wow, we have ended with the plumb line because it is the best line. So let's go and plumb line our parenting and see how well are we doing. Like, it's a process. I know that we can never get there. We can never be at 100%, but we must make the effort to be very good parents. We have several webinars. We'll have one next term. We organize these termly. So every term we organize one. So we'll have one in third term. We have a physical parenting session, which we still organize every term. Everybody has been saying, "Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Claire." But I want to appreciate in a very special way Green Hill Schools and GS Virtual Learning. If you can just give them a big hand clap, because without them, even I wouldn't be here. Even all of us wouldn't be here right now. So let's appreciate for this. Children learn, one, to condemn. Hostility, they learn to fight. Ridicule, they learn to be shy. Shame, they learn to feel guilty. Tolerance, they learn to be patient. Encouragement, they learn confidence. Praise, they learn to appreciate. Fairness, they learn justice. Security, they learn to have faith. Approval, they learn to be like themselves. Acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. So what kind of child do you want to raise? They will learn from where they live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. The Lord surely bless you. Now I will ask that we unmute. I'll ask the control to unmute everybody. What we are going to do right now is spread the blessing of God. So we are going to share in the words of the grace. So once you're unmuted, we are going to share. So let me know when everybody, yes, nice. I can hear sound in the room. Let's share in the words of the grace. And now may the grace of our Lord
Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the
Fellowship of the Holy Spirit.
the Holy Spirit
With us now.
That's
be with
all.
us all
be with you
and
now.
forevermore.
Amen.
Amen.
I think am I the opportunity
Amen.
for you to share a video. You can show us how what you look like this Saturday morning. Where are you? Yes, you can say bye. Thank you for joining us. Surely the Lord bless you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending on Saturday morning with us. The Lord surely bless you. Once again,
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Dr. Walakira. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. God bless.
Bless.
You have my MTN. Your MTN. Next time it should be in church. Anti kati omanyi we bajja bagenda ne babeera nga babadde ate ne kati ne meeting zizino endala waddeyo ne section meeting, this class meeting ngira bannange tunabeera ku ssomero kati kino baba bakirabanga naye ng'ate bambi nate ndowooza kati tufuneyo gurupu y'abato tuli tubadde ne gurupu ey'abakulu y'abato nnyingi tuli tubadde ne gurupu y'abakulu nga bo bamanyi njirina nnyabo amala okulaba eri ku WhatsApp
Eza kwanga teri.
wakolera mwanyeki nange luli rekita nobwate bwe yange eri eyago